Stop overthinking your bass playing. That one habit is costing you more than your technique ever could. Watch this. I'm going to take a small line from a Chris Potter saxophone solo, sing it, and turn it into an original bass line. Now watch. That came from a small phrase of saxophone. No scales, no theory, no thinking. Today I'll show you exactly how to do this yourself. Are you ready for this? I'm Sascha on bass. Let's go. Here's something I've noticed after 20 years of teaching and listening. Two things. The first, most bass players know way too much theory and use way too little of it musically. You've studied all of it. And yet, when it's time to solo, when the changes are flying by, your brain locks up. You're thinking about what scale fits, what note to avoid, what pattern to apply. And by the time you figured it out, the moment is gone. The music moved on without you. That's overthinking. And I think the reason is that everyone only talks about what to play and almost nobody talks about how to get it out of your head and into your instrument. The second thing I've noticed, the lines bass players play are more or less in time, but they have very little life in them. Little rhythmic variation, little articulation, little color. Consecutive 8th notes, 16th notes, the occasional triplet. The notes are there, but the music isn't. And one of the most powerful things you can do about both problems, the overthinking and the lifelessness, is to sing what you want to play before you play it. Here's why. Your natural ability to sing is so much more developed than your ability to play the instrument. Think about the way you speak right now. The way you talk is highly syncopated, complex, tight and groovy. And you do it all day long, effortlessly, no overthinking. But the moment you turn to the instrument, all of that effortlessness disappears. Singing brings it back. It connects what you hear in your head directly to the fretboard without the instrument getting in the way, without all the theory getting in the way. And look, so many great masters do it. And they'll tell you to do it too. Some sing out loud, some just move their lips a little. But they do it because it helps them get out of their head and put the music more directly into the instrument. That's the tool we're building today. Now we build the skill systematically, and I want to give you something extra, a foundation exercise that supercharges your ability to generate ideas when you improvise. Hey friend, just a quick note. I'm not a CEO yet, but please give me 30 seconds of your time. First, I want to thank you for tuning into my channel. It really means a lot to me, and this channel becomes more and more a big part of my life. I feel like my journey on this channel just gets started. So if you like what I'm doing here, please join the 20% viewers that are actually subscribed to this channel. That would really give me a massive support with the YouTube algorithm and therefore helps me improve the videos even more. Thank you, fellow sufferer. Here's the thing. When you improvise, you need to be able to hear rhythmic possibilities instantly, without thinking about them. The way to develop that is to sing many different rhythmic patterns that are directly related to jazz vocabulary. So I've put together a worksheet for you. It's available for free, link is in the description, or use that QR code right here. Here's how it works. The worksheet has 10 syncopated exercises. They're built from a simple syllable system. Do for downbeats, ba for offbeats. So do bar is 2 8th notes, a pair. But here's something important. When you have consecutive 8th notes, 4, 6, 8 in a row, the syllables change. Instead of do ba, you use doob. Why? Because consecutive 8th notes have a different flow. The doob makes it easier to bounce, easier to swing. The difference is subtle, but you'll feel it immediately. And if you see a single quarter note or 8th notes on a downbeat, you use the syllable doop. That makes the downbeats wider and more tenuto. So to recap, doop for single downbeats, wide and full, ba for a single offbeat, dooba for a pair of 8th notes, doom for consecutive 8th notes, bouncy and swinging. Now here's the exercise. Snap your fingers on 2 and 4. No metronome this time. And sing through the patterns on the worksheet. Like this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Dooba, ba doop, 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 doop doo ba 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 doop doo ba ba doo ba 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 doop 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 doo ba ba doo ba ba doop doop doo ba doo ba ba doo ba ba doo ba 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 doop 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 ba 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 doop ba 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 doop doop doo ba 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 doop doop doo ba 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 doo ba doop doo ba ba doop doo ba ba doo ba ba doop doo ba ba. Here's why this matters for the overthinking problem. Every pattern you sing is a rhythmic idea your brain can now access. You're filling up your internal library, not with theory, not with intellectual concepts, but with sounds, with feelings, with rhythms that live in your voice. And the more patterns you internalize this way, the more ideas will flow when you're standing on the stage with the changes flying by. You will create entirely new ones instantly, because you won't be thinking, you'll be hearing. That's what you're training. Now, after every round, change the tempo. Faster first, then slower, then somewhere different, because your time feel has to work in every environment, not just a comfortable one. And just like we talked about in the last video, make it groove from the very first syllable. This is not a counting exercise, it's a music exercise. Feel the swing, snap those fingers. That feeling of a rhythm landing exactly where you intended, that is the feeling we're building. And over time, with this exercise done regularly, that feeling moves from your voice to your brain into your hands without thinking. That's effortlessness improvisation. That's what you heard in Chris Potter. And it's what you're building right now. Now Chris Potter. For those of you who know him, you know exactly why I chose one of his solos. For those of you who don't, Chris Potter is one of the most important saxophone improvisers of our time. His rhythmic language is extraordinarily advanced, sophisticated, his style unique and distinctive. He probably influenced my playing and thinking even more than Hadrian Farod. The solo we're working with today is from a tune called Nudnik with the Chris Potter Underground Quartet. I want you to find Nudnik before you do this exercise. Pull it up on YouTube or wherever you listen, because the first thing we're going to do is take a fragment from that solo. Step 1. We take a small fragment from the Chris Potter solo and we turn it into your own material. Here's how. Listen to the first 30 seconds of the solo on Nudnik. Just listen. Don't touch your bass. Just listen. Now, find one moment, one phrase, maybe two, where something rhythmically interesting happens. That's your fragment. Now sing it back. Not the pitches, the rhythm. Use any syllable. La, da, do, whatever comes. It's not about being accurate on the first try. The point is to get the rhythm out of your ears and into your voice. And notice what happens the moment you start singing. You stop thinking. You're not analyzing intervals. You're not naming chord tones. You're just making the sound. That's the whole point. Don't worry if it's not perfect. That's fine. That's the process. Every time you sing it back and notice where you got it wrong, that's your ear getting more precise. Now let me show you what this looks like in practice. I will take this phrase. Here's what's happening rhythmically. Most musicians, when they transcribe, they learn the phrase and then they try to use it as is. And that's great. That's how we learn language. Imitation is the most fundamental way humans learn. But what I want you to do next is paraphrase it. The same way you would paraphrase a sentence in a conversation. You don't repeat the exact words. You take the idea, the shape, the feeling, and you express it in your own way. You play with it. Here's how that works with rhythm. You hear how each variation is related to the original, but it's already becoming something else? That's the paraphrasing method. And here's what's really happening. You're training your brain to generate ideas, not retrieve them. That's the difference between the player who overthinks and the player who flows. The overthinker tries to remember the right thing. The player who flows generates the next thing in real time from an idea. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need a gigantic vocabulary to improvise with freedom. You need one good phrase, one small rhythmic idea that you can turn, flip, extend, compress, shift on the beat, shift off the beat. One idea. endless variations. That's how improvisers think. Not, I need to learn 1,000 licks. Rather, I can play 1,000 lines with one idea. Now bring it to the bass. In the following example, I start with the original phrase, but in E minor, and let it take me from there. I'm just playing with it a bit until something new happens. Then I try to come back to it. Just an idea, my voice and the instrument. And I find it quite nice to hang on to that small phrase as an inspiration. Playing around with it is a lot of fun. So this is the core of the method. Find the small thing, understand it, make it yours. First by copying it, then by playing with it, singing the whole time. Now that you've worked with individual fragments, expand. Go back and learn the first 30 seconds of the solo by ear. The whole thing, sung. Not necessarily the pitches, the rhythms, but sure, sing with pitches if you want. That helps even more. Put on Nudnik. Listen to those first 30 seconds, then sing them back. Play it again, sing them back again. Now you might be thinking, we just did fragments, why learn the whole 30 seconds per ear? Because it sounds like a small thing, learn 30 seconds per ear. But what it does is not small to your playing. If you take the time to learn this saxophone solo by ear, you will absorb so much more than some theory books could teach you. To me, these are golden nuggets. These 30 seconds are packed with rhythmic inspiration. And not only that, the entire song, the improvisation on the intro, the head melody, the solo, it's all so easy to grip. The melodies are so strong. This solo is a gold mine for melodies. And if you learn these first 30 seconds by ear, you will learn a lot. I know this is where people want to skip ahead. I get it. But this step is not the warm-up. This is the work. This is where the rhythmic language gets transferred from a great musician into your nervous system. Not into your theory brain, into your body. Don't skip it. I want to say something before we finish. I know some of you have been playing for a long time. You've worked hard. You've studied. Maybe you've absorbed mountains of theory. And still, when it's time to play, your brain gets in the way. You know too much, and it paralyzes you. Common problem. Happens to me all the time. The gap between what you know intellectually and what comes out of your hands, I know that gap well. It's one of the most frustrating things a musician can experience. And I want you to know you're not alone in that. I think every improviser knows that feeling. The ones who closed that gap had a massive advantage. They started early, worked very hard, and grew up with supportive parents in an art-related or intellectual environment. But they all did the same thing. They got the music into their body, into their voice, into their nervous system, not only into their theory brain, into their hands. That's what this method does. So start with a small phrase from a master. Sing it, paraphrase it, bring it to the bass. Learn the first 30 seconds of Nudnik by ear. Then build your foundation with the worksheet. Because when the rhythm lives in your voice, your brain will have it a lot easier. And when that happens, you stop overthinking and you start playing. Not eventually, soon. If you want to take the next step, click the video right here. Thanks for watching, fellow sufferer. Have a good one and see you next time. Bye.